And welcome to the PRAVA live stream. Wonderful to have you here. Now you can just take a breath and relax, and for the next half hour we're going to look at ways you can move through challenges with ease and grace and with resilience and strength, and also become part of the PRAVA community, which is growing and growing, which is awesome to see. So say a big hi. Wonderful to see you here, and lovely to have you with me here for the next half hour. So now what we're going to do today is I want to answer a question that I do get asked a lot, which is, what do I do when I'm in a situation that I can't change? How do I deal with the frustration or the irritation or the anger that can come from being involved in something that I feel like I can't do anything about? And I think in the world as it is now, there is a lot of situations like that. There's a lot of things going on that we do not have any control over, and that perhaps is creating a level of fear or anxiety for you, or perhaps it's creating feelings of anger and irritation and frustration as well. So that's completely normal, and today we want to talk about that and how do you move through that and make this a really much more pleasant journey through, and also keep some perspective so that we can actually create amazing things and good things through these challenging times. So first of all, what I want to talk about is, and you're probably similar to me, so maybe type in if you know this feeling. If you are a bit of a type A person who likes to be in control, who likes to be able, if something's wrong, then you want to fix it. You will get up and do something about it, and you'll make things happen. So you're an action taker. You're someone who doesn't put up with things as they are. You might go out and tell people not to do something a certain way. So it might be your kids, it might be your partner, it might be people at work. You might be in a position of control where you are expected to make sure people are doing what's expected of them. So maybe you're used to being in these situations where you do feel a sense of control and that you're able to change things that you don't like. And certainly I know I'm one of those people. If something's not right, I'll go and fix it. I'll make it happen. And I tend to be that when people talk to me as well. I have to make sure that I don't go straight into fix it mode. Okay, if this is the problem, yep, here's how you fix it. This is what you should do. And perhaps you relate to that. We tend to be pretty active people. We tend to be pretty those people that make things happen and take action on things. And we don't like things to not be how we like them or expect them to be. And that can be really challenging when you move into situations where you don't have control, or you don't know how to change things. And thank you, Andrea. You asked a really good question. So Andrea is having an experience where there's a situation where there's kids next door, people next door who are really loud and they're making noise, and it feels like there's nothing she can do and it's really frustrating. So maybe you've had a similar situation where perhaps people are behaving in a way that is impacting on you and making you feel quite frustrated and angry. And the first thing to realize is that is completely fine. It's okay to feel irritated about that. And what's probably happening in your brain is that it's triggering that stress response. Okay, I need to get up and move. So remember, from an evolutionary point of view, so here's my evolutionary biology coming back in again here. From an evolutionary point of view, if you think about the first little worm that started to have, or actually it was probably more like, it was a little nematode worm that first started to have neural pathways, that first started to have the ability to respond to its environment. Or even tiny little cells can do this, but if something's not right, there's a response there's a reaction, and the worm might wiggle and move, or something will happen. It'll trigger a response so that animal can move itself or do something to get it away from a situation that might be harmful. And so it's really, really frustrating for any animal, including us, when we feel like we can't get away from that, when we feel like... So it is perfectly normal and perfectly okay to feel those feelings of perhaps anger, of frustration, of irritation, because that is your stress response. It's your body doing its natural, normal thing to say, okay, I don't like this, I want it to change, and I'm going to motivate this body, to actually get up and do something about it. So completely normal, completely natural. When it's a problem is when that reaction doesn't go away, or you feel like there's actually nothing you can do about it, like that the actions that you're taking aren't having any effect. So you might be familiar with that feeling when maybe you ask someone to stop doing something and they don't, or you don't feel like you can ask them to stop doing what they're doing. You don't feel it's your place, or you feel embarrassed, or you feel worried about the response that you might get if you ask them to change. And if we step back into a world perspective as well, so at the moment we've got our governments and big organising bodies that have to take control and make hard decisions about what's the best plan for all of us in this situation that we're in with this virus. Should we, and at the moment the plan is we need to close down all the businesses, we need to keep everyone isolated, we need to keep everyone at home, we're not allowed to go anywhere or do anything that's not essential. Now, for some people, that must be feeling right now very, very frustrating. And I can see a lot of angry posts on social media about the fact that this is not, why are we doing this? And this is not fair, or getting annoyed and frustrated. And again, that's a completely normal response, because you're feeling like, oh, this is not my way I'd do it, and I want to control this my way. So the first thing that, apart from, realizing that, yes, this is a normal response, the second thing we need to consider and to move towards is that feeling of, is that idea of compassion. And we talked about this last week, and the week before. The foundation of your power and your ability to control things and be okay with life is actually founded in compassion. In compassion, not only for yourself, and understanding that, okay, this is normal and it's all right to have these feelings and responses. This is how my body's set up. It's also having that compassion for the people who are responsible for whatever's happening. So whether that's your partner, whether that's the next door neighbours, whether that's your kids at the moment, and I understand that there's probably a lot of frustration going on at the moment with trying to homeschool children, and that's a tough gig. So having some compassion and being able to step back, take a deep breath, and understand that the people who are doing these things, the people that are behaving in this way, they're on the most part, they're working in their own little mindset as well. They're working in their own little world, and they're just doing the best with what they have as well. So they're probably feeling fear at the moment. Their stress response is probably triggering, and they're feeling agitated and perhaps a little bit on edge and a little bit louder than normal, or easier to trigger than normal. So their stress response, and like we talked about, we've got that stress response. If we don't allow our body to completely fully recover from a stressful event, then we stay remaining high, like this, at this sort of high alert level. So it's really important to understand that a lot of people in the world are at the moment on that slightly elevated level. They're feeling they're going to be triggering a little bit quicker. And if we can take a deep breath and allow ourselves to feel our own feelings, but also allow other people to feel their feelings. And this is where today's theme of acceptance comes in. Accepting that sometimes we can't change what's happening, and the better course to take is actually to be okay at a certain level, be okay, be compassionate, be understanding of the fact that this is happening. And I liken it to, often I see people with those really angry and irritated and frustrated responses. It's like, have you ever seen a dog that's chained, or an animal that's tied up, a horse as well? I've seen horses in this situation where they suddenly feel trapped and they get aggressive or frightened, and they pull and pull and pull at their restraints, whether that's a halter, whether that's a collar, and they get angry and they yank and they jump and they just, they get into that panicked state of desperately trying to get away, and they do that in a physical way. And it's really interesting. We were working with a natural horseman, and we were on a property where there was a horse that was doing this. It was a horse that had come from the racehorse industry, so it'd probably been mistreated, and they brought it into this place to be rehabilitated, to do some groundwork and to help the horse transition into a new phase of its life. And this horse had just been loosely tied, as you would, to the fence of the round yard, and it suddenly decided it was not safe, and it pulled and yanked, and of course, when you tie a horse, you always tie it so that it can break the line, so it doesn't hurt itself. And it shot off through the paddock in an absolute sort of panic and fury, and kicking and bucking, and it was really interesting watching the reaction of the people in the yard. And the natural horseman, a lot of people were sort of going, "Oh my goodness, we've got to go get it. We've got to run. We've got to fix this horse. We've got to fix this situation." And they wanted to run after it. And the natural horseman just said, "No, Tess, everyone take a deep breath, and I want you to completely ignore that horse. Don't buy into the emotion of the horse. It will be fine. It's having a response. Allow it to actually have its response." And it was very, very difficult. I could see for some of the people there, they really wanted to go and rescue this horse because it was running up and down the fence and carrying on and kicking and bucking. And but all of us just stood still and just got on with what we were doing, cleaning the yard, just moving around, doing our thing, completely ignoring the horse. And after a few minutes of the horse tearing up and down the fence line, it was really interesting to watch it, because then suddenly it kind of stopped, and it looked around and looked down at us all from way up at the top of the paddock, and it could see us all just ignoring and going on about our business. And next thing we knew, it just sort of, you almost saw it go, "Oh," and it sort of shrugged its shoulders almost, and just trotted back down to the yards and just stood back where it was and was completely happy, completely fine. And that was a really big lesson for me. At the time, I had small children, and I would often get drawn into, when they were upset, my first response as a mum was, "Oh my gosh, I have to fix this. I can't, why are my children upset? What do I need to do to fix this?" And it was a really big lesson to learn. And this can be in relation to your children or in partners or people at work. Sometimes you don't actually need to fix it. And that's actually the better response, is to have some compassion and understand that, okay, they're having a response. I'll just let them move through that emotion. I'll be here, calm, when they need me, when they get back. And it's really interesting. I started applying that with myself and my children, and allowing them to just have their emotions, and allowing them to have meltdowns, and allowing them to do their thing. And it was really interesting. They learned over time, now when they're little they can't do this, but over time they learned how to move themselves away and have their meltdown and frustration, and I taught them how to do that, and then they'd go and do that, and then they'd come back into the family and they'd be okay. And so that was a really interesting learning. So that's something that you can take, to have some compassion and acceptance. Now, when I say acceptance, it's really important. One of the things I do want to make really clear, because I think a lot of the time when people talk about acceptance, it's easy, you might actually think that acceptance means acceptance of a situation is, oh, well, okay, fine, I hand over all control to someone else, I give up, I'm not going to bother with it anymore. And it's really important to understand that isn't what I'm talking about. Acceptance is not about just rolling over and and not doing anything. So really important to understand is that acceptance is not, it's not giving up. It's not also condoning behavior. If someone's doing something that is hurting you, that is upsetting you, acceptance is not about allowing that person to continue to do that. So it's not condoning behavior. And it's not you just kind of angrily putting up with stuff, going, okay, well, fine, I'm just going to let them make their noise or let them... That's the wrong energy. It's not about you, because that leads to feelings of resentment, and that's not helpful. That's not going to move you out of, that'll actually put you back into your stress response and make you feel worse. So it's not about that. And it's certainly not about resigning yourself to your fate either. It's not about that give up, oh, well, fine, I'm not even going to bother anymore. That is not what acceptance is. What I want to show you, the acceptance is these things. It's allowing people and situations just to be as they are for the moment. So it's understanding, it's having that compassion and allowing someone to move through emotion, including yourself, allowing you to move through something as well. It's knowing, and interestingly, it comes back to that, what we were talking about last time, that powerful thinking, understanding that things are going to change, that first of all, it's not all about you. Someone can have an emotion and be feeling really awful, and it's not your fault. It's not about you. It's actually about something that's going on in their head, and you can allow them to have it, and it's not about you. Second thing is it'll ultimately change. No emotion lasts forever. Even full-on depression and anxiety changes over time. It moves up and down. So you can be absolutely guaranteed that emotion will pass. These things, we are not static beings. We are always in a constant state of we're always in a state of change. So we can rely on that. We can, deep in your heart, you can know things are going to change. The other really important thing about acceptance is we need to allow the darkness as well as the light. So there are going to be times of darkness. There are going to be times that you will feel rubbish. And the more you can be okay with the fact that, yes, we do live in a wave of up and down, the more you'll allow those emotions to be able to pass. You'll know that better ones are coming. So we're allowed to have dark thoughts sometimes. Don't be afraid of them. We need to all allow and accept that we do have dark moments. No matter how bubbly and happy and joyful someone is, I guarantee that they will have... That's the other thing too, this is totally normal. I think sometimes people, we think we're the only ones who are experiencing this, but we're not. We're all human, and we're all built pretty much the same way. And so we all feel these common emotions and these common feelings. And common thoughts as well. So allow the darkness as well as the light. And like I was saying, being able to feel those feelings without fear. So by understanding that they're going to pass, by understanding that it's not your fault, and by understanding that it won't affect the rest of your life and your entire being, hopefully you can move through those feelings and see them occur. So start paying attention to the people around you and see if you can recognize in them when they are having feelings, see if you can take a different perspective and step back and go, oh, okay, righto, I can see they're feeling frustration, they're feeling anger, they're feeling sadness, whatever it is. And that will start you to recognize those feelings in you and being able to see, okay, well, they're a normal part of life and I don't need to be afraid of them because I know they're going to move on. And that goes to that fifth point as well, just knowing there's plenty of time. So for a lot of us high achievers, we always want everything done now. We want the results to come now. And I think one of those things that we really need to focus on, especially in these times where there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear going around, we need to know that there's plenty of time, that there's no rush, that we're going to be okay, no matter where. And I know for some of you, there's some really big things coming up. And big scary things and big things that you have a lot of uncertainty around. But knowing that there's time, that you don't have to solve it all right now, takes that pressure off and again, hopefully takes you away from that overwhelm, any feelings of overwhelm that you might be experiencing at the moment. So this is where we're coming at with the idea of acceptance. Just being able to move through and realize, have those powerful thinking, powerful thoughts around the events that are happening in your life, or the thoughts that you're having about those events. Now, like I said, that feeling of compassion, that feeling of being okay with what's happening in your world and what's happening internally. And one of the ways that you can do this is, and one of the very, very common way you can do this, and that is used by a lot of therapists, is by using these affirmations. So to start changing the way your thought processes are working. And one of those ways is to say to yourself what you would like your brain to be thinking right now. Because your brain's very indiscriminatory. It takes what's coming from the front, your thought processes, and it also takes what's coming down from the back, from your memories, and it kind of puts them together in the middle. And we have got conscious control over that by saying things to ourselves. And one of those things that you can say to yourself is, you can just, even if you're feeling that way, just by saying, I just accept and allow all my feelings. I'm just going to allow this to come and go. And like I said before, a feeling, the actual response of a feeling, the physical response of a feeling, those hormones being released, the neurons firing and all that sort of stuff, that's only a 90-second process. If you can just get through that 90 seconds and allow that feeling to pass. Now, initially you might not be able to do that, but as you get better and better at just allowing them to pass and not being afraid of them, and accepting, I accept and allow all my feelings. It's almost like you just shrug your shoulders. That's a really good way to release a lot of tension in your neck. And it's kind of that attitude where you're stepping back, instead of leaning forward and leaning into the feeling, you're leaning back and just going, yeah, okay, fine. I'm just going to bring it on. If you're going to do this, body, I'm just going to take it. That's fine. And I'll just accept what's coming and move through it. So I did a lot of that through these processes, teaching my brain not to be afraid of having those feelings and those thoughts, and just allowing them to come and flow. The other thing too is, once we also accept our own thoughts and feelings, we also need to have that compassion and accept other people's thoughts and feelings. Just accept them for who they are and how they're responding at the moment. They will grow and change, especially if we can be there as a support and a calming influence, rather than getting triggered ourselves and reflecting back to them that fear and anger or irritation. If we can just control that emotion, then it's a far better model for them to watch and to learn from us. And I guarantee, if you start being able to do this, the people around you will change too, because instead of that wound up cycle, you're actually going to be the one starting to bring that down and start cancel that wind up and bring it down to just nice and calm. And I know for a lot of people right now, that is so what you need, especially if you've got a whole bunch of kids at home and everyone's getting pretty frustrated and wound up being at home. So see if you can maintain that calm. Now, of course, breathing is one way to do that. Taking deep breaths, belly breaths, not chest breaths, but belly breaths. The other way you can do that is to change your focus. And especially when someone has done something, or there's something happening that makes you feel very irritated and angry. So this is the other reason I said on the last session, let's try not to watch the news, or even be very careful of the social media posts that you read, because if you read ones that make you feel that, either that feeling of being trapped and unsafe, or feeling angry and irritated and upset, then suddenly your focus is meaning that you're triggering that stress response. So what we need to do is purposely and consciously switch that focus over to, okay, what are the good things? And again, we come back to that powerful thinking process. So if someone's annoying you, start focusing on, after we've forgiven them and allowed them to be who they are, the next thing is we can focus on, okay, well, when are the good times? When aren't those kids next door yelling and screaming? Can I just really revel in those moments of peace and really appreciate those moments of peace? Can I focus on maybe some things that I can do? So we can take, I'm not saying we can't take action. So of course, it's about taking action in a nice, calm and relaxed way, rather than from a place of anger or upset. So maybe we can go next door and ask if there's something, is there something we can do to help? Can we just ask the person if that child is really struggling with something, maybe can they go outside into the garden? Or maybe could we teach the child to scream into the pillow or something like that? Now that might not be appropriate, but is there something else that we could do? And obviously, like you said, Andrea, we can shut the windows, we can do things in our world. Maybe that's the time to just say, okay, I'm just going to go out for a walk and I'm going to enjoy other things. Maybe I'm going to listen to something on my headphones to change my state and just allow that to be, and know that I'm going to move through it. It will finish. They can't scream all day and it will finish. If someone in your family is doing something that's really frustrating you, or you're angry or feeling a bit resentful about, then perhaps remember to focus on the things that they do that make you really happy, make you feel grateful that they're in your life, that they're there. Maybe they give you beautiful hugs. Maybe they do just kind things for you. Maybe there's other thoughtful things that they do for you. So start focusing on those wonderful parts of that situation, that focus into the light, focus into the sunshine. And I know sometimes that can be hard when you're right in the middle of the emotion, and that's why we do compassion first and allow the emotion first. Then we guide our thinking over to focus on other things that we can do, actions we can take. Remember, we want to feel powerful. How can we change the situation and influence the situation? Because what I want you to remember is all those inputs are neutral. Everything that happens in our life, a virus going around the world, that's just a piece of information. We can interpret, our brain is able to interpret that information however we choose to interpret that information. So we can read news articles and stories about how vaccines are being developed and about how medications are working, about how the vast majority of people recover perfectly fine and are healthy. And actually, I read the other day in one of those towns in Italy, when they tested the people who were donating blood and doing all that, 70% of people actually already had the virus without even knowing it. So they'd been donating blood and doing all these things, and 70% of these people had already had it, didn't even know they'd had it. So we just need to be feeding our brains with different information through this period as well, and making sure that we don't focus on the negatives. We change our focus to those positive and constructive thought processes. The other thing we can do is focus on something. So we can either use our powerful thinking and focus on something that makes us feel empowered and strong again, or we can focus on something that just completely distracts us. Maybe you go and read a book, you go and do something different. And what I'll do, one of the things that I do is I love focusing on something in the natural environment, because I think that brings you back at deep level. It brings you back, your brain, to a state of things are okay, because the world is still turning, the sun will come up, the leaves are blowing, they're moving in the breeze. And one of the things that I love watching is water. And I think that's a really powerful one, because water flows. And that's what we're trying to achieve, a flow of emotion, a flow of thoughts. And so what I'll do is I'll upload, we went walking a couple of weeks ago, and we found this just beautiful little stream, and I actually filmed it on my phone. And often before bed, I'll just play that on my phone and watch the water flow for a few minutes, just to change my state, change my focus, allow those thoughts to flow. So I'll upload that for you here on Facebook and on YouTube. So you can just do the same. If just before you're going to bed, just focus on something like that. Allow the thoughts to flow and allow the emotions to flow through you, and watch that water and know that the earth is still turning and the world continues, and that we can progress and we can be resilient and strong through all these things that we're going through at the moment. So I'll do that. The other thing, which I'd love you to do, is let me know what you are struggling with at the moment. So I really appreciate for those people who typed in comments and questions and things. That's really great because I think all of us learn and from those experiences. So if there is something that you are particularly struggling with at the moment, you think, okay, how do I change this particular situation or this particular thought, or how do I deal with this particular thing in the PRAVA framework, like in the PRAVA way, using powerful thinking or my rights, rules and responsibilities, my acceptance, my vision, or my association. And that's a really great way because obviously we all learn together, and it's really nice to move through these things together and also share experiences, because then we know it's not just us. We can do this, we can move through this together, and it's a common experience for all of us. So I'd love to help with that. So if yes, comment and say what sort of things are you moving through, and also what did you find helpful in today's session? What sort of thing, what one thing stood out to you that you can implement now that will make a big difference to your next few days? So we're going to go live again next Tuesday. So make sure I'll schedule that, and so you'll see that pop up in your feeds. But yeah, in the meantime, let me know what's working, because again, that shows other people what stands out. What are the things that have been most helpful for you? And we really appreciate that as a community as a whole. All right, so fantastic to have you here, and cool. Okay, fantastic. I can see you there. Looking forward to next week. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Easter. Eat lots of chocolate. Enjoy yourself. Think beautiful thoughts, and I'll leave you with this. No matter what happens over these next few days, try this process. When you have a feeling that is uncomfortable or fearful or you don't like, maybe just kick back, shrug your shoulders and go, okay, fine. I accept and allow all my feelings and all the feelings of the people around me and put a smile on your face. So thank you again, guys. It has been wonderful. I'm going to put that up and say farewell. And I really look forward to connecting with you all again next week. Have a wonderful Easter. Happiness and joy. And I'll see you next week. Bye.